Good morning and welcome to the Return Homestead. My name is Mike and my wife Marty and I homestead 50 acres in southeastern Kentucky. Today we're back in our 2001 Fleetwood mobile home. We are doing a complete remodel. We have been working in the kitchen trying to get kitchen cabinetry in place. We've purchased some cabinets, but it's really hard to get those locked down where they need to be until we finish this wall. So today we're going to be building out this apothecary wall. We've gotten the shelving put up top and it's time to build the shelving unit that goes in below. We're going to be building something very similar to this table that Marty built several years ago. Now the table is designed to be movable, so it has a lot of brackets and hardware on it that we're not going to use on this installation because we're going to be able to attach everything to the wall and make sure that it's anchored into the studs. So we don't need the same kind of joint stability that you'd need in a movable piece of furniture. So we're modeling what we're doing off of this table, but it's going to be specific to this built-in unit. So the first place to start is with measurements. Yes, we've measured this kitchen several times, but before I start cutting wood and trying to make it fit into this space, I want to get good solid measurements from today. So we're going to remeasure the whole kitchen, make sure I understand exactly how deep a table I can build here. We are going to be covering this with tile, so they also have to fit the tile, and we also have to accommodate for the thickness of the tile to try to match it up with the countertop and the rest of the kitchen. So I'm going to get busy with those measurements, and once we got those done, we'll get busy cutting and screwing things off. So wherever possible, I always like to use the tape measure and make sure I measure everything exactly. And I'm looking for 31 5/8 for the lengths of the legs. And that's 31 5/8, but we want to go a 16th past that. So that takes into account the thickness of the saw blade. So we get a piece of wood that's exactly 31 5/8. Then we rinse and repeat. We need 4 of these legs. The other side, then hold from this side and reach across this way.
That's still dangerous.
Still is, but I can stand out this way, right? And I could hold, if I had a longer board, I could hold it here and still cut.
Yeah, you want about 3 or 4 inches at least.
You just don't want to cross your hands up. The ideal is to keep your hands 6 inches away from the blade. You had some
And those are switches.
sandpaper, yeah.
Yeah, sandpaper's
That's
out
what you
here.
want sandpaper for. See that? So while we're building something that looks similar to that table that Marty put together a few years ago, this is getting screwed off to the wall. So we don't need to worry about the brackets and connectors. Actually, this wood is getting screwed off to the wall completely. So we don't even need pocket holes or anything to connect the cross pieces with the legs. So we just put the legs up in place, throw the cross piece on. We're going to make sure that this is level. And once we got it level, we'll screw off the legs and the cross piece to the studs. Come check this level and see what you think. And say hello to Bailey, our grandson. He's decided to come and help us out here on the Return Homestead while he works on building his own online presence. We're going to teach him a few things about construction today. Kind of a difference?
Yeah, if it's right where I have it now,
Yeah,
it's perfectly level there.
that's perfectly level. Wow, that's a big difference.
So if you hold this straight,
Uh-huh.
or I can actually hold it, you can
Yeah.
change them out. I'll hold it here.
These are going to be exactly the same size.
So your floor's just lower over here.
Yep.
Well, this is gonna be mounted to the wall, right?
Just a tiny bit taller.
So we could bind this post to the wall,
Yep.
and then what we could do is we could measure out the side and make a form-fitting board, because I don't think you guys are planning on moving this anytime soon.
No, this doesn't move. It's going to stay connected. To
For now, this will be, you can just hold it.
level. Okay.
Just about.
So move that all the way down to the end and show me how big a gap I've got.
Measuring tool.
So I can cut legs to fit, or
About 5/16.
so these legs don't actually support this back rail. We're actually screwing that off to the wall. We're going to be a little bit short on our leg on this corner. The floor does roll off away from the wall a little bit here. Not a big deal. We'll just lift the leg up to match what we're doing. The real key is to make sure that this cleat gets attached to the wall and it's level when we do so. We're also going to be putting screws right at the very ends of the board. If you're within an inch of the end of the board, you want to make sure you pre-drill those. Otherwise, you've got a real chance of splitting this wood. And while it's all going to be covered, we're putting countertop on this and then laying tiles. So we really don't want any kind of an uneven surface because our board split. So I'm going to get these holes pre-drilled and then we'll get it screwed off.
Got it, those things we're recording. That's a little off to the wall.
That's fine. In the end, it's all going to be covered with a sheet of OSB. So I did come up with one small flaw in the plan here, and that's that there's not a whole lot of stud to work with at the end of this wall, and I do need to secure this. We also have no stud at this end of the counter. So we're going to have to work on that, but of course we do have the leg that will be coming up under here to provide the support. We just need to make sure this side rail is tightly secured to the wall. There are a couple of options here. I could have used a pocket hole jig and we could have drilled in some pocket holes in advance. And then we would have those to be able to make this connect. We can also just toenail a screw in. It's not really that complicated. We use a drill to pre-drill this to make sure we don't split out the wood. And if we get just one screw in there, that's probably going to be sufficient to hold this back corner. So with a pocket hole jig, I could have gotten this a much cleaner hole. This would have set back even further. But all I really need is for it to be secure. So toenailing this screw in works just fine. Y'all keep in mind that this is construction on a budget. We're trying to do this as inexpensively as possible, which means using the least amount of materials. We don't technically need these legs, but in order for this to be an attractive area in the kitchen, Marty's going to be shooting videos with this as a backdrop. We want it to look nice. So we're going to go ahead and put the legs in on the back and on the front, although everything is already tied off to the wall. So I cut this board just a little bit longer. We're actually measuring out at 69.5 inches. I gave it an extra 1/16 of an inch. This is called sneaking up on the measurement. Just in case, because we had the tape bent into the edge, just in case it's a tiny bit longer than what we expect, we cut the board a little longer than that, so I know I'm going to have to make an adjustment to this, but it'll make sure that I get a nice tight fit between the walls. And there we are, nice and tight. So we're actually squeezed in wall to wall. We're actually pressing out on the drywall. There's enough tension on the board that I can line this thing up. At least I could a minute ago. Should be able to take my hands off of it and it will stay in place. Nice and tight. So that's perfect. So in situations like this where you need to hang a board, if you don't have the grip strength or you haven't worked with tools long enough to be able to hold this board in place while you put the screw in, don't be afraid to go grab a seat clamp. You can clamp this off, it will hold it perfectly in place while you put the screws in. That can save you a lot of time and frustration trying to hold this board while it's moving as the screw goes in. .31 15/16. I'll cut 32 and sneak it.
You got one.
Not 31 15/16. 31 and 5/8. So big difference in the floor. That's why I'm building to level instead of dimension. So I've had to kind of play this one fast and loose. The floor does slant away from the wall here, so we've got a significantly different gap between the floor and the bottom rail. We want to make sure that our countertop stays level, so we're going to work off of level and we'll true this up to the space rather than taking measurements up from the floor. So this leg ends up being a little bit longer than the leg on the other side. Rail on my side is going to be leveled off of this side. So rather than trying to measure up from the floor, because we've got a difference in the level of the floor, we'll simply true this up to the space and make sure that our side rails are level side to side. So we got a nice tight fit. All we need to do now is get this side rail so that we can screw off to the bottom. And we'll go ahead and toenail this in just like we did the other side. Tape measure. Outside, of course. So we've gotten all the trim in down around the bottom, just trimming the bottom of the flooring. That helps to secure the floor in place, make sure there's no gaps at the bottom of the walls. And then all we've got to do is cut the shelving material that's going on the bottom. So all of these cuts are the same, 69 3/8. So we've got all of the boards cut for the shelf on the bottom. Before we secure those off though, I want to make sure we've got a good support for our countertop because we are going to be setting tile here, and any deflection in the boards has the potential for cracking a tile or cracking the grout. And this 2x4 is just a little bit too flexible along this entire length. So we'll bring some bracing in that goes from front to back, and that'll allow us to tie the front off and also make sure that it can't bend or warp while we're setting the top. So we got the cross braces cut to length, and all we need to do now is just make sure we've got this squared up. So just use the speed square on that. Make sure we got that square. Looking good. We'll just screw this off here, and then we'll toenail in from both sides on the back just to make sure we're not pushing this off center. So all that we have left to do today is to get these boards secured on this bottom shelf, and then we'll come in next video to put the tile on the top. Now, putting the tile on the top is going to mean we got to get some 3/4 inch OSB to cover this, and then we'll be able to put the thin set on that and then the tile on top of it. And then one more trim piece goes on the front just to clean up the edge of the tile. But I think this is going to be as far as we get with this project today. We just need to secure these boards down, and we're going to be calling it quits from that point. We do appreciate you joining us on the Return Homestead today. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please take a moment to do so. While you've got that window open, hit that thumbs up icon. That lets the algorithm know you enjoyed the video, and they'll share it out with more people. We'll see you next time.